Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is episode 30 of Steady Focused. I'm your host, I'm your number one, Mr. SimeonHendrix, and in this episode of Steady Focused, we're going to sit down with a friend of mine, Mr. Moataz Ahmed. He went from obese, depressed, dentistry major to a hand lettering graphic artist who travels the world freelancing. He lends his skills to organizations that make a positive difference in the world. Oh yeah, and for fun, he learns new languages. This guy is awesome. I love his Instagram feed. I love his aura. It's a great show. We talk about how to get $50,000 clients, turning $7,000 into $300,000, getting lost in the middle of the desert, the seanwes community, and the importance of learning about other cultures and always doing the right thing. Please help me give a big, steady, focused welcome to my friend, Mr. Moataz Ahmed. What's up, Moataz?
What is up, Simeon? How are you?
Man, I am doing great. Introduce yourself to everyone. Like, give us your elevator pitch. Who are you, and why should the people be excited? Because I am excited. I'm pumped.
Sure. So I am a graphic designer by trade, hand letterer. Specifically, I do hand lettered logos. And what I do is I basically move from place to place, and I work mostly as a freelancer, um, doing graphic design for just a lot of the things that I really care about, a lot of the causes that really, get me going. And a lot of it is philanthropic things. So a lot of it is just good causes, like, things like America's, things um, that help people, in the long term. The skills that I have are language based and, art based. So I do a lot of graphic design. I do a lot of just teaching people what I do. So I teach people languages, I teach people how to do graphic design, and it's part of that, the trifecta of having a business out there, getting clients, teaching, and yeah. So exactly what Sean McCabe has been talking about.
Yeah, and I'm glad you transitioned into that. That's where I was going. So we are both members of the Sean West community,
Right.
and strongly recommend. You guys have heard me talk about it so many times. Go check it out, seanwes.com. And if you're a creative, which you probably are, if you're listening to the show, and you are interested in taking yourself to the next level, um, financially, entrepreneurially, and and being surrounded by like-minded individuals who are passionate about taking it to the next level. That's where Montez and I met in Austin, Halloween last year.
Yeah.
Give us a rundown of some of the places that you've been, Montez, as a graphic artist, showing up in the area and doing it.
All right. So my goal is to go to every single continent and visit 150 countries and live in 15. Okay.
Wow, wow.
So far, I've only accomplished a very tiny portion of that. I've only been to around 13 countries or so, but most of them were in the past, like 2 years.
Hmm.
And that's because of technology nowadays. It's really really easy to travel. It's really easy to travel very cheaply. There's plenty of podcasts out there that tell you exactly what to do. And it's this idea of slow traveling, and definitely learning languages really helps. In a lot of countries, English is not very spoken, especially if you're out in like a place like a rural area where it's not a city. It's not like a place where a lot of tourists go, which is what I really like to do. I really like to go off the beaten path and just kind of get exposed to the culture, because it's really really great. Like I think I don't remember the exact quote, but it's like a cure for racism, basically, if everyone got exposed to other cultures, because people fear what they don't understand, and the more you understand about other cultures, the more you're going to have that perspective. You're going to know why they do what they do. A lot of cultures are severely misunderstood. My culture being like the prime example, right? So I'm from Egypt. I was born and raised in Egypt, and like Arabs and Muslims are extremely misunderstood. So definitely, if the more you know about a culture, the more you know about them, and language has a lot of nuances that go into that culture. Culture is based off of language, and vice versa. Language is based off of culture. Everything influences everything else. But yeah, so it definitely came out of nowhere. Just the idea of me being able to travel, and I think it had to do with my failures actually.
There we go. Okay, preach on it. Let's hear it. I love talking about failures.
So when I was in school, I went to Ohio State, and I was actually studying pre-dentistry. So
Okay.
I was going to do dentistry, and I've actually gone through all of the prerequisites. So I took all the OChems, the PChems, the AChems, all the biologies and physics and like all those like biochemistry and all that.
Okay.
But like it was torture. It was really hard. I wasn't doing very well, and it was just a really hard time for me. And I think I was actually getting a bit depressed. I was very obese at the time. I was balding. It was just not a fun time, right?
Oh, wow.
So so psychologically, I feel like I was in a really bad place. I just wasn't a very happy person, right?
Okay.
So and then I decided, well, I always like to draw and paint. Maybe this career isn't for me at all. And through that entire time, I had, a calling. Basically, I would doodle everywhere. If you look at my, my science classes and my math classes, all my notes had just had these doodles next to them, and a lot of it was hand lettering, right?
Yes.
So I realized, well, let me do something else. I went into architecture. I went into, and then I took a graphic design class, and I said, well, this is actually really good because it's the scientific form of art.
Mhm.
There's a lot of rules that are universal about aesthetics, and it's not very subjective. It's actually a lot of it's very objective. It's you make something in a specific font, you make something in a specific color. There's rules for contrast. There's rules for this. There's rules for that,
Okay.
and it completely destroyed the stereotypes that I had about art being like this thing that no one understands, right? So then in school, I've always been fascinated with Japanese culture. So I studied Japanese in school, and I ended up graduating with a major.
Awesome.
So I have a degree in Japanese, um, and another degree in graphic design. So while I was studying graphic design in Cincinnati, and then I later finished that education back in Columbus, um, I went to Haiti to do some relief efforts. So after the earthquake, a third of the country became homeless overnight, and it was a big catastrophe. I really did feel like I was doing a difference, even though it was really small. But just being around people who were orphaned, people that were struck by this horrible calamity, just kind of giving them a little bit of support, brightening their day a little bit, helping them out. It's a huge it was an amazing experience. It really felt like this was it. I need to travel. I need to help people. And at the time, I did speak some French because in Egypt, in my school, we learned Arabic, but then the school I went to had English as a second language and then French. So I used whatever French I remembered, and it was actually really interesting. I thought I'd forgotten all my French, but it just came back. So I thought, wow, this is really great. And then, so that sparked this whole idea of getting back into language learning. Because back then, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will agree with this, when you learn languages in school, you're only doing it to fulfill a requirement, and it's really not, you forget all of it, you don't retain
Yes.
any of it, and it's a very painful experience.
Yes. Yes. It's hard to retain it. It's not like a practical, hands, like a real world situation. It's more like memorizing a dictionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really not like that. It's actually really fun. It's kind of like your building blocks. A lot of it is guessing. A lot of it is body language. A lot of it is completely universal. It's I was very surprised that I could communicate with Haitians in not their first language and definitely not in my third language. So it was a very interesting experience there, and you just and that sparked that whole language thing.
And then so we're in Haiti,
Hmm.
and then where does it click in your mind that you say, "Man, I can travel the world freelancing,
Right.
being my own boss. I have what it takes to uh, keep myself full of work,
Hmm.
and I can crack this egg."
So I learned all sorts of things. I learned how one person he decided, well, you know what, I'm a freelancer who has money and who's willing to spend on design because a lot of people don't appreciate design. So he looked at billboards and he said, okay, I see a lot of billboards for lawyers, surgeons, like plastic surgeons especially. So he said, okay, I'm gonna niche down and I'm going to say that I'm a plastic surgeon designer, right? So he made these business cards and he went where they go. So he looked at where they all congregate, and it was in a cruise in Australia. So
Oh wow.
he paid $7,000 to go on that cruise, right? He asked them, he's like, hey, is it only for plastic surgeons? And they're like, no, not really, but it's catered to it. And he said, well, okay, I'll just buy a ticket then. So he went on there. He put a $7,000 investment, and he would just go to these conferences, talk to people, didn't even sell anything. He would just, talk to them, have friendly conversations, and then people would ask him, oh, so where do you practice? What's your firm? Where's your hospital? Where's your clinic or whatever? And he would say, well, actually, I'm a graphic designer, right?
Yeah. And I
Um,
specialize in plastic surgery.
right. And he would,
Wow.
and it was like, wow, really? That's amazing. I've been looking to expand my business. And then he would give him his business cards. He came out of that conference with $300,000 worth of work,
Oh my gosh.
right? So that kind of sparked that idea in me. So I was like, well, wow, why don't I implement this where I go, wherever I go? So I said, okay, I'm going to, you know, I basically left the very you know, it was a very lucrative job at National Geographic. I decided, you know what, it's time. I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to implement those things that I've learned about business, about language learning, about traveling. So I'm going to do that full time. So I went out into to California, and for 2 years, I've gone through another series of failures, but it was a huge learning curve because it's a completely different world out there. Because I was in Silicon Valley, where it's like a huge, it's a lot of risk, but very, very high reward. Everyone's doing startups. Everyone has that mentality of investing, in putting their life savings into their passions. But literally, like everywhere I went, supermarket, literally everywhere, people would tell you, oh, you're a graphic designer. I need a graphic designer because everyone else there is a programmer, an engineer, or something, and you're like the only unicorn in that area. No one does what you do. I'd go to Android developer meetups, right? I would go to all sorts of random
So
things.
you're going to meetups or conventions where people are gathering that are in different fields
Exactly.
and then you show up, everyone's
Hmm.
talking, "Hey, I write code. I write code. What do you do?" Well,
Exactly.
I am a graphic artist. Oh my gosh. So you're like the hot chick in the room that everyone wants to date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right, and that's exactly the kind of advice that you get from these places. Go to conferences. Go to places where your own field goes to, but at the same time, go to ones that are completely different fields. Um, like seanwes conference, like all those conferences that are just not necessarily graphic design oriented. They have all sorts of creative people that are
Yes.
like-minded in their pursuit of passion. Going to these conferences to gain all this knowledge, gain this huge network of people, to meet great people like you, that it definitely will bring you a lot of huge and just incredible opportunities. So just, my advice to everyone is to go where people are with things like graphic design and any of those creative fields like photography. You really can do your job from literally anywhere in the world, and it's with the internet. It's really easy. When I went to the conference, I talked to Nathan Barry afterwards, and I told him I did his advice, which was, talk to the people you look up to, talk to your idols, and tell them, hey, I'm gonna go visit you, um, and they'll be happy to meet you. So I was like, well, okay. So I did that. I talked to him, and I told them I will be in Boise, Idaho, um, which I mean I wasn't planning on it, but now I was, right? So he's like, okay, great. So here's my number. He gave me his number, and then he said, well, meet me at this time. And I was like, great, perfect.
Just so everyone understands, tell everyone who Nathan Barry is and why he is important.
Yeah. So he's the founder of ConvertKit. He specializes in turning people's businesses basically from the $10,000 range to the $100,000 range through email. And there's a lot of different strategies that you use with email, and he can tell you all about them. So,
Yeah.
for example, like a random thing that he mentioned was like, if you write a PS at the bottom of your email, people will more likely than not read that. So if you just have an email, if it's too long of a text, no one's going to read it. If it's whatever, no one's going to read it. But then people scroll down to the bottom and they see a PS. They're like, what? Wait, what? And then
Uh-huh.
they read it.
Ah.
So that's where you put your call to action. That's where you do your, what have you. So I took the opportunity to drive to Boise, and he gave me some really, really, really great advice about how to get clients. So one of the best things he said was, go to the agencies of, where people do your job best, and tell them to give you the clients that they don't want to deal with. So, for example, agencies and firms, they have maybe like a $50,000 minimum or something. If you don't have a $50,000 budget, they won't even consider you, right? So tell them, hey, those $50,000 clients, send them my way, right? $50,000 for a single person is going to be a huge benefit. I mean, it's incredible. But to an agency who has to pay all these different people, it's nothing. So that's what I did.
You have an incredible Instagram.
Hmm.
You are dedicated with it, consistent with it, and I love not only the visuals that are incredible, the messages that you give are strong,
Right.
and I really enjoy that. Many times you will give such a detailed story that maybe some people say, hey, with Instagram it's not about the words, but I love that. I don't know how many words there are, but there's a lot. Like, it's a very in-depth story that you put in with that. So did you pick that up from someone else, or is that just preference?
Yeah, so it's through these groups that all these mastermind groups, they tell you to just give out info, just give out as much info as possible out there, and then people will reciprocate. It's about reciprocity. Um, like in Robert Cialdini's book, he talks a lot about how to influence people. He talks a lot about how reciprocity really really helps. So if I like for me, I use Instagram as practice. I have to go every single day for as long as I can. Just post daily, post consistently. Consistency is key to your successful business. So have this routine, have this consistent system in place where you constantly give out content. Content marketing will accumulate loyal viewers, loyal fans. The most active people who comment and like and things are people who actually read the content, and they tell me that they
Yeah.
love learning about all those random things. Like people tell me that they gain so much knowledge, they become more intelligent. They tell people about all those things, and you definitely get that from a different perspective because I've gotten that perspective from traveling, from learning languages, and I'm sharing that experience with people. Um, so when I do a lettering piece, I have like a theme for every day of the week. So it's like Motivation Monday, Tutorial Tuesday, Nerdy Stuff Wednesday, Travel
Yeah.
Thursday, Fake Logo Friday, Anything Goes Saturday, and then Language Sunday. So it's
Cool.
like,
Cool.
so I have to, and it actually that limitation makes me more creative, because if I say, well, I'll just do anything, it ends up being nothing. I end up having a really hard time. But with having that limit, it really makes me be very, very focused, and it allows the audience to expect something. So every week they're like, the people who only care about getting the motivational quote on Monday because it's just business information, really. And then people who only care about languages. So I put different hashtags, and then that gets different people to follow me.
Yes.
And then some people stay, and some people leave when they say that, oh, it's not just that daily thing. But some people, they stay, and they every week, whenever it's that day of the week, then they comment, and then they like, and they're very engaged.
Let's go into a little bit of a lightning round. So I'll just say some words, and you say what are kind of the first things that come into your mind.
Sure.
Hero.
Well, that's kind of weird because it's the brand, it's the name for our brand in America, so it's my company's thing.
There
So
we
that's
go.
immediately what popped up. But yeah. Um,
Okay. And then let's spin that outside of your outside of there. What comes into your mind?
what comes into your mind? Uh, I guess, well, since I'm a very nerdy person,
Hmm.
it shows in my work. I thought of like Superman, just like kind of this like iconic hero figure with a cape,
Yes.
right?
There we go. Um, best meal you've ever
Oh man, oh that's the hardest question literally I've ever been asked in my
had.
entire life.
Because you've eaten so much good stuff.
Yeah, I think my wow. Um, so there's a lot of stories that in different countries, and some of the meals that I've had, they're really, really great meals because of the hardship that I had to get there. But there's one
Ah.
that was really memorable, and it was at in the UAE after I got lost in the desert, literally, and I was like starving. It was the weirdest day of my life. It was really weird. But anyway, I ended up eating like a whole bunch, and it was like a whole bunch of different things from camel. So I ate like
Oh,
a lot of camel meat in different forms, like camel burger, camel with rice, and with like a milkshake with camel milk. It was a
oh
really
gosh.
weird day, but it was but yeah. So that one was a very interesting meal.
A book that has impacted you.
It's supposed to be lightning round, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
whatever. Take your time with it.
uh,
Whatever. I know
um,
you've read a lot.
right. I think Strength Finder 2.0, just because after I learned my strengths, now I could apply it. So before then, I had no idea what my strengths were, but this really helped me, niche down. So I would say that
Strength
one.
Finder, Strength Finder 2.0.
Yeah, and it's not a traditional book. It's not like a
Okay.
book that's chronological. You could
Okay.
pick and choose your own area, but yeah, it's great for understanding other people's perspectives too, which is great.
The best piece of advice or that someone has told you in your presence, like you've been talking with someone, or a profound moment that you remember of advice that this is life changing.
Yeah, um, just do what's right. Um, like a lot of times, doing what's right is really difficult. That's the advice is just to always do what's right, and 100% you will always get back good.
Mm.
Like the opportunity for National Geographic came out of nowhere. All of those different crazy opportunities with Banana Republic, with all these like big name Lyft, all that, like all these big companies came out of nowhere because of that advice. I held to my guns, and it ended up just working to my benefit in the most unexpected ways. I
Mm.
won't get into all that, but like literally that advice, just do what's right no matter what.
Let's give a challenge out to the listeners, as even myself, and this could be however you want.
Mhm.
maybe you'd say, hey, Simeon, I'd challenge you to take a photograph in this way,
Hmm.
or read a book, or give someone a hot dog. I don't know, whatever comes to your mind.
Right.
Challenge me.
Okay. Good. So I think um, I would say go to a culture that you have no clue about. Basically, just kind of take a globe, randomly spin it around, and just like put your finger somewhere and learn about that culture.
Mm,
Um, Kind of repeat the process if you can as many times as possible, daily, weekly, just something, a check-in where you learn about another culture, maybe learn a word of the most popular language there, um, just something that like that, and trust me, you will be a better person. You will have that knowledge will come in handy at some point of your life. Trust me.
awesome. I love that, because
Hmm.
that's not anything I would have, have done. So
Hmm.
very cool, man.
Yeah,
All right. So where can people find about you online? I know they're going to want to dig in on you.
sure. My website is motizzy.com, and it's MOTIZZY.com. That's where, and if you scroll to the bottom, there's all my other links to all my other sites. This is just a consolidated area where all my online existence lives.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mhm.
And anything else you want to say, man? Anything else that's on your mind or your heart, or the stage is yours.
No, yeah. I highly encourage everyone to kind of just explore different cultures. Learn from other people's failures by talking to different people's, going to conferences, going to networking areas that are outside of your field, doing all sorts of, um, you know, entrepreneurial endeavors. Follow your dreams. If you've ever do whatever you do when you're wasting time, when you're supposed to be doing something, and you find
Mm,
yourself doing something else, look into that thing that you're doing. Pursue that in some way, shape, or form, and
mm.
always have an eclectic outlook on life. Yeah, that would be my short and sweet to the point sentence of advice.
Man,
To tell people.
I know there is so much more. We're just barely, um, what do we want to say? We're just barely getting the first piece of butter on this bread with you. I know there's so much more that
Yeah,
we will end up talking about. I look forward to getting you on the show again,
yeah.
keeping up with your travels and your
Mhm.
development as we both advance over the
Mm.
next 60 years of our lives.
Yeah.
That's cool, dude. Well,
Hmm.
um, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have loved this interview as much as I have. You guys can check this out. You want to see show notes, you want to see links to the stuff that Montez has been talking about. You'll go to steadyfocused.com/30 and keep tuning in, guys, because we're going to keep coming at you. Until next time. I'm your number one. I am your host, Mr. SimeonHendrix, and this is Steady Focused.